I had some bad experiences dealing with the major banks when I first went to apply for my first mortgage, and nobody was returning my call. I had to follow up several times. No one would get back to me. One time, I finally got a hold of somebody, and only for them to tell me that I was declined, and that's kind of what I was expecting. But at first, they had pre-approved me, and I was ecstatic. This is going back like 20 plus years here now. But they told me I was approved. I was ecstatic. But then I thought, wait a second, don't they have to check my credit? Don't they have to ask me about my debt, which they never did? And they're like,
Wow.
oh yeah, we'll do that once you have found a property. That's when we're gonna go through all that. I'm like, well, I don't really feel comfortable with that because I knew I was coming off a rough patch. I knew my credit was a little bit questionable. I knew I still had a lot of debt. So they when I asked them about this, they reluctantly agreed to check, and that's when I had to follow up multiple times, only for them to come back and tell me that I was declined for the mortgage. It's like, if it just didn't make sense to me. And then another bank was giving me just information that was flat out wrong, and
Wow.
so I'm like, there has to be a better way than this. People deserve to be treated better. And so that's when I started looking at options to come into the mortgage industry. It was actually a couple of years after that, because there was some um, politics at my old job that I'm like, I have to get out of here. And it was like, let's take a look at mortgages.
Awesome.
And
That's great. And then
I just came in wanting to help people, and I wanted to help. I wanted people to have a good experience. So I came in um, uh, with the mindset of giving people a better experience than they're going to get anywhere else. And it's still the tagline on my website today.
awesome, awesome. That's great. So your whole focus is all client first, client facing, making sure that clients are happy, etc.
It's all about, and sometimes we'll even advise them not to come with us if it doesn't make sense for them. Even if there are times when I'll talk people out of giving us business if it's right for them. I know we'll get it down the road, but if it doesn't make sense for the client, it doesn't make sense for the client. I'm going to advise them of that. And I put a lot of pressure on my staff too, to treat clients the same way as we treat our own family. And Joanne will tell you that too, how
Yep.
much I mention that, and how stringent I am on, and how much I go over that with the staff to ensure that people are being taken care of this way.
That's awesome. That's great. That's exactly what we do too, right? Like making sure the client's happy, right? And then from there, you became the Amazon bestseller "Beat the Bank" that I see behind you.
Yes.
You're also on Top Million Dollar Agent television show, and I believe it's gonna air also in the next episodes as well.
Yeah, so I was the exclusive mortgage broker on season 2. They didn't have a mortgage broker for season 3 and season 4. And then I'm back for season 5 and season 6, which is probably going to be aired later this year, and then next year for season 6.
Amazing. So we're talking to a TV show here, TV star here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Using the term star might be a bit of a stretch. I'm basically just giving some mortgage advice for 1 minute on each episode. So, but hey, I'll take it.
Awesome, awesome. That's good. I've been asking a few mortgage brokers what their experience has been in the past 6 months of interest rate hikes, as well as what your predictions are in the future for 2023. And because I guess what we're seeing now is a lot of our clients want to buy, but they're all hesitant, both investors and first-time home buyers, or even flippers or like downsizers. They're all waiting to see what's going to happen. So, in your experience, what has been your experience in the past 6 months and going forward in 2023?
Well, the market, of course, has slowed, as everybody is aware, and due to rising rates, and that generally happens whenever rates rise, and whenever rates do start to trend upwards, I do notice a slowdown. But in this case, it's been, of course, excessive, and if you look at the percentage-wise, rates have increased now faster and more than they ever have at any time in history. Even when you look back into the early 80s, rates went from about 8% to 20%, but that's still only about a 2.5 time increase. We're like 3 times.
Yeah.
So it's substantial. Or when you look at the Bank of Canada rate, prime rate went from 2.45 to 5.95. The overnight rate went from 0.25 to 3.75 just in 7 months. So it's insane. And so we have to look at the reason why these increases came to be, and it's to combat inflation. And nobody likes rising rates. It's got a lot of people scared, especially those in variable rate mortgages, of course, and those with mortgages coming up for renewal. And so nobody likes the rising rates, but we also don't want to be paying $20 for a loaf of bread either. So
Exactly.
that's why they're combating inflation, and they're trying to bring inflation under control. And they've said from the beginning that they're prepared to act aggressively. And back at the beginning of the year, it was being forecasted that we'd see maybe 4, maybe 5 increases at 0.25% each. So that would have been 1 to 1.5% increase. Instead, we've seen 3.5% increase.
Yeah.
So significantly above. Nobody expected the oversized rate hikes, and it was the war in Ukraine was what threw the wrench into the gears, because that was the supply chain was already weakened, and then the war in Ukraine, sanctions placed on Russia as a result of that, further weakened the supply chain, which drove inflation up all that much further. So that's why the Bank of Canada has been so aggressive. They've already stated that they are going to increase their rate further. The last rate announcement on October 27th, they increased by 0.5% when the market was largely expecting a 0.75% increase. This sent the bond yields plummeting, which are what fixed mortgage rates are largely based on. So we did see some, even though they increased rates, we did see some cuts to fixed rates by several different lenders because of that. That's all eroded now after the U.S. announcement last week, which they hiked by another 0.75%. And
Wow.
And at first they had said that they're going to hold off for a little bit and wait to see if wait to see the impact of their rate increases. But then their spokesperson came right out right after, and it's almost as if he just went right off the script or forgot about the script and just kind of went on a tangent on his own, saying, no, we need to increase further. And that was kind of what sent the bond yields going up again. So whatever ends up happening, nobody really knows for sure. Of the big 6 banks, they're forecasting another 0.25 to 0.5% increase on December 7th. Not one of them is forecasting any further increases in 2023. In fact, 3 of the big banks are starting to forecast rate cuts as early as the second half of 2023 now.
Oh, wow.
So we'll see if that continues. That's what their economists are forecasting right now. Of course, that can change. Their forecast has really not changed that much since the summer. They've increased their forecast by another 0.25% since what it was in the summer, because they were originally saying back then it was going to be another 0.5 to 0.75. Well, then they went from that to another 0.75 to 1%. So they just added another 0.25%. So
Gotcha. So in this scenario, for our clients who are coming up for renewals, coming up for closings in the next until December, like until the end of this year, what would you recommend them to do to get it, like a fixed or a variable? How long? What's the term? What would your recommendation be for them?
And that's a great question. And regardless of the market, I've always, some people say always go variable. I've always said it really depends on the person and it really depends on the client. So I might talk to one client and I might advise them to take a 5-year variable. Another one, I might suggest to take a 2-year fix. Another one I might suggest a 5-year fix. It really depends on that person, their tolerance for risk, their financial situation. So we advise each person individually on that. But we have to look at, there's a few different things that you have to look at when choosing between fixed and variable. And one of them is the spread between fixed and variable. And right now, variable rates are higher than fixed for the most part, and they're going to go even higher. Now, that doesn't mean I would necessarily, when you look at that information alone, you would think, okay, well, obviously fixed makes the most sense. Why the hell would anybody choose variable if you can get a fixed rate lower than what the variable rate is? But we have to look at what rates are, what's expected moving forward. So spread between fixed and variable is one thing. We have to look at the what's expected to happen in the market moving forward. And I think anybody taking a fixed rate right now, 5-year fixed in particular, fixed rates are the highest that they've been in 14 years. And one problem with fixed rates is if they start to drop below the rate that you're paying, that interest rate differential penalty is going to be insanely high. And the further it drops below the rate that people are paying, the higher the penalty is going to be. And with rates as high as they are right now, there's a long way for them to drop. So again, anything can happen, because the third thing that you want to look at is that person's tolerance for risk. Because if they are going to choose a variable rate, and I still think that there's a chance that you could come out ahead after 5 years by choosing a variable rate, even if the rate is higher in the short term, they have to be able to stomach further increases, and they have to be able to be mentally prepared in the event that the rate does start to go up more than what's expected. Because right now, like I said, none of the big 6 banks are forecasting any more increases in 2023, but there are some economists that are expecting it to increase another 1% from where it is today. Now, I think that's a little pessimistic, but again, anything can happen. We'll see. It really comes down to how quickly they can get inflation under control. If inflation continues to drop month over month and they continue to stay on track, then we could very well start to see rates drop sooner than later. But if inflation if it kind of sticks and is kind of reticent to drop, then it's possible that more rate increases could be required. And nobody knows the answer to that for sure. Not even the Bank of Canada knows what's going to happen. So these are all things that we have to look at when making that decision.
Got it. Thank you for that. There has been news that possibly we're going to enter a recession by the end of this year, beginning next year. Personally, I already think like we're already in one because prices have dropped so low.
Yeah, I agree.
But in the scenario where there is a recession, then what would I guess your analysis between variable and fixed would still be the same, right? And interest rates in a recession, do they maintain the same, or do they drop, or is that it's not? There's no correlation between the two.
A recession would generally put downward pressure on rates, because usually a recession is demand is weaker than the supply. Yeah. So really what the Bank of Canada is trying to do with these rate increases, they're trying to force a recession, even though they've been reluctant to use that word. They're trying to force a recession. They need it because they're trying to bring the demand down in line with the current supply, because the rate increases are not going to do anything to help the supply. But what they can do is help bring the demand down in line with that supply to balance it out. Well, people are scared. The rate hikes will almost certainly force us into a recession. The supply will eventually return, and at that point, the supply is going to exceed the demand. At which point, the Bank of Canada is then going to need to stimulate the economy by dropping rates, and it's possible that we could see some substantial rate drops.
So, do you feel like supply right now, because at least from what we see in the on the sales side, is that there's a huge shortage of supply? Even now, even if the demand has quite slowed, because I feel like most of the demand is being pent up towards next year, and with the immigration that's going to come in, about 400,000 people each year, it's just going to keep penting up demand and then supply can never really catch up, right? I think they said that they have to build about how many how many hundreds of thousands of homes a year to be able to catch up on supply. Um, so what would your forecast be there? Because I don't think that they could ever bring down demand to meet supply in one way or another.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I mean, we'll see to know how much more they would need to bring it down, or if that's even possible. That's really hard to say. As far as real estate goes, yeah, the we're seeing record numbers of immigration. The last time Canada saw this degree of immigration was, but you'd have to go way back to 1917, and
Wow.
and people are always going to need a place to live. The real estate market's never going to stop. People are always going to be buying homes. It's just a matter of the degree of to what extent, and there will be pent up demand. There will be a lot of people sitting on the sidelines, and back in early 2020, I wrote a great blog saying that now is the great time. Now is a good time to buy a home, because people are scared. People are sitting on the sidelines now. When you want to act, I said either later this year or early in 2021, later 2020, early in 2021. I said the market is going to go ballistic,
And it did.
and
You were right.
and so I said now is your window. Do with this information what you want to. And
Yeah.
and that's exactly what happened.
Awesome. Yeah, and people made a lot of money. Those who bought then.
Yes,
So that's good. That's good. For different types of loans. So, in our experience, we find that a lot of clients, when they do look for mortgages, they always find the traditional type of mortgage, principal interest, blended, amortized over 25, 30 years, 5-year term, whatever it is, Is there alternative ways of lending that are more beneficial in this market than that traditional way?
Not really, because like interest-only mortgages are few and far between, and they are, for the most part, limited to private money lenders, and you're going to pay a significant rate for that. So private private mortgages range from 8 to 10% now for a first mortgage. So they've gone up quite a bit from where they were as well. They haven't gone up quite as much as what the other rates have gone. So, but you're going to be looking probably 8 to 10% on a private mortgage, and that's what you need to do if you want an interest-only payment. Now there are other alternative options, B lender type options. You're still going to have an amortized mortgage, but we can go up to the 35 years, which could bring the payment down as well.
Gotcha. So there are options for 35 years.
Absolutely, yeah, and this is where everybody's a little bit different again. So it really comes down to what people are most interested in. And I'll often ask people, say, well, what's more important to you, having a lower rate or having a lower payment? Do you want, how much do you want to qualify for it? And first question I'll usually ask people when they're looking at getting a pre-approval is I ask them, well, what price range are you hoping to, what price range are you hoping to buy within? Because I want to know what we have to do to try to get them there, or if it's even possible. So once I know what price range they're trying to get within, and once I look at their the details on their situation, we'll look for different ways to get them to where they want to be. I wrote a great blog, I think it was earlier this year, on 7 ways to qualify for a larger mortgage that we send to people too, and we look at these different strategies, different ways to potentially get people up to where they want to be. But I do have that conversation with them. I say, look, we can get you here, but this is what the cost is going to be. This is what the rate's going to be. And we want to make sure that we're putting that person into a good position, because some people, they have no idea about money and finance, and they'll just go with whatever you tell them, and then they end up in a situation where they just can't afford to make their payments. So we want to make sure that we're putting them in a good position that's going to and protect them from themselves in a way as well.
Got it. That's good. For investors who, investors love to leverage to be able to make their investments so they can save their capital for other things. In this market where it's getting more expensive, what would you recommend to them? because prices have dropped significantly, especially for resale properties. Um, what would you recommend for them to be able to still make their investments and still come out, with a good return?
So you're talking about investors who want to buy real estate right now?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's kind of not really my expertise. So
Gotcha.
I usually in that case I would pass that on to the realtors. I'd say, look, let the realtors advise you on that. Personally, I think the market is going to drop more. I
Okay.
think that there will become a window to buy, which people are going to want to get into before that window starts. Because once that window opens up, everybody's going to be jumping in, and that's where you have that pent up demand. Everybody piling on top of each other again is going to drive values up tremendously. Again, it's just a matter of time before that happens, and I would say that's going to happen sometime next year. I would
Or
say
do you think?
sometime by mid next year, we're probably going to start to see, and that's providing that the rates start to drop too around that time. So once we start seeing these rates start to drop again, that's going to stimulate the demand in the real estate market. But if you wait until that time, then you're going to be faced with
You're gonna be caught in it. Yeah, it's
so
gonna be
you
too
want
late.
to get in, yeah. So and again, I would push this question to a realtor, but I mean, if it were me, I'd probably wait until sometime early in 2023 to really pull the trigger on that.
Got
Uh,
it.
but nobody knows for sure, right? Nobody,
Yeah,
none of us know. We
exactly.
can only speculate, and all we can do is advise our clients the as we would want to be advised. And
Exactly. Yeah, I've been telling I have like a few clients right now that are still, on the fence, and I've been telling them probably wait for the winter market to see, because usually it slows down, right? Winter market's usually very slow, as it is over the holidays. So I was telling them, let's see, let's wait, but try to get in before spring. That's probably what I could advise them of. So that's
yeah,
good. Great.
yeah, good.
Um, for first-time home buyers that are entering the market right now, what would you like to tell them? What would your advice be for them right now?
Basically, to anybody who's looking at entering the market for the first time is get you need to have professionals in your corner. You can't just hire just anybody. You can't hire just any realtor. You can't hire just any mortgage broker. You can't hire just any lawyer. You want somebody who is going to be giving you the right advice because in this business, real estate, mortgages, there's a pretty low barrier of entry. So whenever you have a pretty low barrier of entry, you're going to have your share of yahoos that really don't know what they're doing. There is an unacceptable amount of incompetence in this industry, and I'm sure you see it on the real estate side. We see it on the mortgage side all the time. We see people where they went to a broker or a bank and they told them they qualify for X number of dollars and they really don't. So that's when we have to start looking at alternative options, and it ends up costing people a lot more than what they were originally hoping for. So I recommend people to do their research and choose somebody with a solid track record, with a good reputation, and somebody who's known for taking care of their client, somebody who truly does care about the client, because so many people say they do, but they really don't. They're about how much they can get, how much they can get out of that, how much they can get out of it, what's in it for them, instead of asking what's in it for their client and what they can do for their client. And I think that if you do what's right for your client, then it all comes back to you in the end. And
Exactly.
I think people see that, and people see we're dealing with somebody who truly cares about them. And yeah, and some people are just looking for that quality advice. They just want to be guided by a true professional. And that's my advice to first time home buyers. Yeah, choose wisely. Like don't pick just anybody.
Good. Thank you for that. So I have a few first-time home buyers to send your way then.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'd love to speak to them, Samuel. And
Awesome.
my,
Awesome.
my goal is always to make you look like a rock star for anybody. So we want we
Thank
want
you.
we want them to be running back. Oh my God, thank you for referring us, Paul.
Awesome. Yeah, no, for sure. Joanne's only said good things about you, so and she really does enjoy working over there. So, more than happy to send people your way. That's for sure.
Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that.
Awesome. So we'll have all of the links from the articles that you said. We'll have them in our description,
Okay.
and then we'll also send you a copy of our current conversation interview as well, and then we'll tag you online and everything. So
Oh,
I think
I really appreciate that.
I think you've answered all the questions that we've had. Thank you so much, Paul. It's finally great meeting you. Hope to
Likewise.
meet you in person soon. We do our company. We do a lot of pre-construction,
Mhm.
so a lot of our clients are looking for pre-approvals, etc. And they're also looking for help when they have to close, right? So we'd be happy to send a lot of people your way.
Yeah, I'm always happy to advise people. Pre-construction, we usually we usually ask them to go get pre-qualified at their bank, just because we can only go 120 days out on a rate hold. So
Gotcha.
if we didn't give that advice, like what we could have done is, yeah, we could have done these pre-approvals all along for these people that come to us all the time looking for pre-approvals on pre-construction property. Now, had we have said, well, I'm not going to send them to the bank, I want it for myself. So no, I'll just give them a pre-qualification letter, come back to us once you're ready to close, and then we'll look at doing something. Well, that would have been really bad advice to the client, because we would have been forcing them to pay 5% instead of 2%. So we're really glad that we're able to do that and give those people the right advice.
Gotcha.
And we always tell people, come back to us once you're within 120 days, and often we can crush the rate. Right? So it's either going to be A, we crush the rate, or B, they got a better rate with the bank, in which case the client wins in both cases.
Nice. Good. Thank you. And then, yeah, so I guess going forward, we just have Joanne send you the stuff.
Sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Easy.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
Reach out to me anytime you or any of your agents have any questions. Feel free to call me or email me anytime. I'm always happy to help and advise.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. It was great meeting with you, and thank you so much for your time.